What follows is a brief screencast to provide you with an overview of Pebble Plus, the personal learning space. So first of all, here we are in Pebble Plus. This may look slightly different to the version that you have, that's just because I've changed the colour and the image and so on, but the functionality and everything else will remain the same. So here we just have the Pebble Plus icon. Now PebblePad is made up of two components. Pebble Plus you can think of as the personal learning space, and this is where anything you create, develop or upload within your Pebble Plus learning space is personal and private unless you choose to share it either with individuals or to a workspace or publish it to a website, etc. Okay, now the icons on the top row, the first icon here is for the second part of PebblePad, which is called Atlas, and Atlas stands for the Active Teaching, Learning and Assessment Space, and essentially you can think of this as the institutional space within PebblePad. So this is the part where you may submit some assets to a workspace for a particular module for tutors to provide feedback or comments, or it might actually be to submit a summative assessment if, for example, the type of assessment you're submitting is a webfolio or e-portfolio. So that single click takes you into Atlas, which I'll just illustrate, but I won't go in there at the moment. So that takes you into Atlas where you can find the workspaces you're enrolled on. The next icon takes you into something called the Resource Centre, and this is where tutors are able to create assets for you that you can download, for example workbooks that you might utilise to help support and enable your learning. So that's a shortcut to your Resource Centre. The next icon is a shortcut to your asset store, and this is where everything that you create, develop or upload within PebblePad is stored, and what you'll find is that the last asset that you created, so for example here, this one that I created recently, always appears first on the list in the asset store. Okay. Moving along this line, here we've got an information button which gives you some information about Pebble Plus, what it's all about, how and why you can use it, etc. So do have a look at that at your leisure. This button here is particularly important in the context of you using PebblePad in your studies. This is the Help menu. And if you click on this, anywhere you go in PebblePad and find that question mark icon, you can access the Help menu. So here, for example, we're in Pebble Plus Help. If you wanted help about how to use Atlas, you would go to Atlas and that would bring up the Atlas Help. But at the moment we're in Pebble Plus. So for example, if you wanted to look how to, for example, design a new webfolio, you would click on there. And then you would get information here. There would be a tip sheet with screen grabs that you could work through, and there are also other resources. There's videos, for example, that you can access through the Help menu there as well. So that's the Help menu. This button here is the Logout button, so clearly I'm not going to press that at the moment. So that's the top line. The next line down, this is where you actually get to do stuff. So this is the real sort of functionality and the nuts and bolts of Pebble Plus. So this button here, Add New, brings a drop-down menu here where these are a series of what are called scaffolded wizards which enable you to develop and create assets. I'll not go through each of these individually as there will be separate screencasts on some of this functionality, but if for example I just choose Reflection here and I go for this model there, you'll see that it brings out this structured template where essentially you follow the prompts. So I would enter a title in there, etc. I could put a date on and then follow the prompts, describe what it is you've thought, done or experienced, what you've learned from it, and where you go from there, now what, and so on. Okay, so those are a series of scaffolded wizards that you can work your way through. So that's the Add New, and this is also where you can do things like upload a file external to your PebblePad account, and again that will be subject to a separate screencast. The next series of buttons, when you become more confident and familiar with the functionality, is called Design New, and this is where you get to be more creative in terms of what you produce and design. So you can create activity logs, blogs, collections of assets that you can put together. Now there was, as you will have noticed, a CV template builder within the Add New, but this CV in Design New allows you the facility of designing it completely from scratch, so you're not given the prompts or a template to follow, you design it from scratch. You can also produce a webfolio, which is another term for an e-portfolio. So if you think about a conventional paper portfolio where you have a series of section headings, and then in amongst those section headings you locate all your evidence, that would be the electronic version. A folio page is a single page version of a web folio, and that can be useful in a range of contexts. So those are features where you can add new assets and design new assets. In terms of being able to view what you've got, there's a range of functionality here. If you click on View, you can view your assets, so that's another way of getting into your asset store. You can also view your list of contacts, so everybody that are contacts that I work with in the context of my Pebble Pad are all listed in there. You can also view your messages. You have a message center, and this is really quite useful in that if anybody shares something with you or posts comments on an asset that you've shared, then this is where you receive the notification of what's happened, and also if you've submitted something to a workspace. So the message center is quite important. You can also go in and update your details. You can put an image in, you can put names, information, contact details, update that as you see appropriately. So you see here I've got my Twitter accounts on there as well. Okay, the other things you can get to in terms of tools and resources, that's another way of getting to Atlas and another way of getting to Resource Center. Template Builder and Workbook Builder are quite complex, and you need to be very familiar with Pebble Pad before you start utilizing those. You can also customize banners for web folios, and you can customize appearance, which is how this has been changed. I've changed the image and the colors and so on, so you can go on and play with that. Subsequently, when you leave the university, you can always transfer to a personal account as well, should you choose to carry on with your Pebble Pad. And then the final one in this context, these are the settings. You don't really need to worry about too much at the moment, although the link to Google Drive will become important as that becomes embedded at the university as well. Okay, so that's a brief overview of what Pebble Plus entails. I hope you found that useful.